What's going on, everybody? This is Maximilian. We're back after a short delay. My apologies. We are actually finally closing out the semester here in Hong Kong. I will be done with school in about a week. So I'm just taking care of a few last things, final preparations, exams, blah, blah, blah. And after that, it's going to be all downhill. Well, aside from the fact that I'm going to be working full time this summer, but I mean, that means I'll have weekends and evenings available, so I'm going to upload a lot more frequently as soon as the schedule, or my class schedule rather, is completed. And what have we here? We've got a rival battle, finally. I figure, like, at this point in the game, we would have fought Gary at least 3 times, but apparently not in Silver. He doesn't show up nearly as frequently, which is a darn shame, to say the least, because I love kicking my rivals' butt. I don't know about you, but that's just my opinion. Ghastly on Ghastly is rather interesting because, for whatever reason, and I'm not sure why, Ghost Pokemon moves are super effective against Ghost Pokemon. So it's a licking war, and whoever is a higher level Lollipop is guaranteed to win. Just throwing that out there. For the most part, though, his Pokemon are absolutely terrible. Like, his Ghastly is okay. He just has a mediocre Zubat, which can easily be taken care of. Don't use Chikorita against him because he has Leech Life. And that just makes things a bit complicated, since it's super effective against Chikorita, and even a weak move like Leech Life actually does some damage. So don't do what I did there. Learn from my mistakes. Just give Totodile all the glory and have him water gun him to death, assuming Totodile doesn't, like, flinch over and over again. That's probably one of the most annoying things about Bite in this game. They increased the frequency at which the Pokemon will flinch, and they also made it a Dark-type move, which I don't really understand. But, hey, I mean, it's good for you if you're using Bite, but if you're fighting against something with Bite, it can be a bit rough. You'll find that Dark-type moves are much more useful later in the game, but for right now, they're pretty much irrelevant. His Bayleaf, as per usual, will burn to a crisp if you throw Quilava at it, which is exactly what I did here. It takes absolutely no effort to beat a Bayleaf with a Fire-type Pokemon, so you might as well just go ahead and use it rather than making things difficult on yourself. Because licking that thing is going to take forever, and it does actually know some moves that will hit your Ghastly, so there's really no reason to bother. After you beat his worthless Pokemon, he'll whine and complain because he's such a little girl, and he doesn't take anything like a man, and he always gives excuses as to why he loses, but that's typical of your rival, right? And after all, he is the one and only douche. Alright, getting a tissue here, my bad. Don't you just hate it when your nose starts running in the middle of a commentary? I don't know. Maybe you don't. Oh my god, it hatched! Togepi finally came out of that egg. I can't remember exactly how many steps exactly it takes to do that, but hey, it came out, and that's all that matters. So now you got a level 5 Togepi. And right now it's basically just a giant paperweight. You can teach it a few TMs that make it fairly useful, but if you actually want it to be doing something relevant in your party, you're going to have to level grind it quite a bit. And it's actually not that bad. Like, most people just write off Togepi as being like, oh, it's too low level, there's no reason for me to mess with this right now. But once it evolves into Togetic, or however you want to pronounce it, that thing's actually pretty solid, not gonna lie. So I would recommend raising it, or if you want to catch a different Pokemon and put it in your party, that's fine. I just figured I might as well use it since we have it. And come on, it's Togepi. That thing was like a staple in the Pokemon series, so it's got all that swag going for it, you know? I don't really feel like using any of the teams I have right now because really Swift just seems like it's too preemptive to throw on Togepi because I'm pretty sure Togepi learns Swift at some point later in the game, so I don't really want to waste a TM like that. I mean, technically I could clone it using the Pokemon box glitch, but I really don't want to take the time to do that because I want to keep going in the game. We're actually making some really good progress, and I want to keep pressing on ahead with that. Right now we are in the Ilex Forest, and there are some wild Pokemon in here. I think I cut out the wild encounters because they just take up way too much time. At least the ones where I was level grinding Togepi, because I knew you guys didn't want to see that. Anyway, what you have to do is, it's kind of like a puzzle here. You have to take the Farfetch'd all the way over to the right-hand side, then you have to get behind him. Make sure that you actually do get behind him, otherwise he'll go the other way. And then take him all the way back to that kid who can't keep track of his stupid Pokemon. Haha, what a noob. And if you talk to his sensei or whatever that guy is over there, he'll give you the Cut HM, which is excellent, because Cut pretty much gets you everywhere you couldn't go in this game prior. Well, nah, except Surf. You really do need Surf. Water makes a lot of barriers in this game, but cut is very useful. And don't worry about teaching it to your Bayleaf or Chikorita if it's still a Chikorita. Because you can forget the HMs a little bit later in the game, and honestly, Chikorita doesn't have that many good moves anyway, so it's not like it's going to be a huge deal. I wouldn't worry about it. So, teach it cut. I would recommend cutting tackle for cut. Ha ha ha, terrible pun. It's basically like an upgraded normal attack, and it helps. It cuts down bushes. What's not to love? Now, later in the Ilex Forest, you'll be getting a TM if you follow that little side route going to the right to talk to this guy who you happen to catch out of the corner of your eye, but you're not sure how to get there. He'll give you a TM. I think it's a TM for Headbutt, which is really weird because there's so many different moves in this game which you can use like HMs, whereas like you can only use HMs and maybe like teleport or dig outside of battle. There's several different moves you can use in this game, like Headbutt being one of them. All those little tiny like one square trees you see in the forest can actually be headbutted, and sometimes you'll get Pokemon out of them, and that's actually one of the ways that you can catch certain Pokemon in this game. They can only be caught by being headbutt out of a tree. I think the most notable one would be Pineco, the Pinecone Pokemon, go figure. But we won't get to him really any later because he's not that great. I know when he evolves into Forretress, he's pretty freaking ridiculous. It's almost impossible to kill him. But that takes a lot of effort, and considering Pineco is absolutely terrible beforehand, not even going to bother with it. We'll get to it later, don't worry. We're going to get him on the Catch-em-all. But just to the north, if you keep going on this route, you'll find Goldenrod City, which is the next stop in our little journey. But first you got to find a couple of trainers. These trainers are actually semi-difficult. Not really, but you get the gist of it. You put your Togepi out, bait and switch, and then you get some experience, blah, blah, blah. And that's pretty much the rest of this episode. So let's do a little bit of a quick update. It is getting stupendously hot here in Hong Kong, which I'm sure most of you already knew that Hong Kong is a very tropic place anyway. But the way it works is Hong Kong is kind of, it's almost surrounded by mountains on its northern edge. You would think that because it's right by the coast of the ocean that you get a rather nice, like, I guess, ocean breeze, kind of like California does, where it doesn't get really above 80 degrees ever too much. And it has always a really nice, dry, pleasant, not so much dry, but a pleasant level of humidity, where it's just not overwhelming. Well, Hong Kong is like the exact opposite, because it's like a cesspool of moisture. Because those mountains prevent the air from taking out any of the moisture that settles in the city. And when it settles in the city, like it's absolutely awful. You walk outside and you'll start sweating without doing anything. The water just literally pools on your face. It just feels terrible. I was never one for humidity. Like, even though I live in the Midwest, Tornado Alley, and we get all that moisture from the Gulf of Mexico, so like I guess I'm kind of used to it. But even so, like I think this is probably worse than what I'm used to living in the Midwest. Like it's just it's awful. And then since the city is like all those skyscrapers around it, there's no way a breeze is actually going to be able to get through there. So it's just always really stagnant, really moist, warm, sticky air. And you feel like you're in a sauna everywhere you go. Like, I've never been so grateful for air conditioning in my life. I have to tell you, it's unbearable outside if you stay there for more than a few hours. Even when you go out at night, it's like 80 degrees and 100% humidity. It's brutal. Nonetheless, Hong Kong has been really cool. I went to the night market last night, bought some souvenirs for friends and family. I'll probably actually go back again because I didn't get everybody everything I wanted. We ended up going a little bit too late because street regulations and the policies that they have in place in Hong Kong dictate that all the vendors have to be off the street at a certain point. But that's one of the coolest things about Hong Kong in general is the night markets. They're really famous for it. They literally block off like several dozen blocks of streets, and they're just filled with street vendors who've set up like little stations almost where they go to sell their goods. Now, they work a little bit differently than most normal markets do. They actually don't have any price tags on any of their items. And that's because it's kind of like a bargaining game. That's like half the fun of going to the night market is that you're essentially you're trying to get the best price that you can. Now, granted, even though the price they quote you is still probably like a good price compared to what you'd normally pay for it in a country like the States or the UK or anywhere else in the Western world, you can easily get it for much cheaper because most of the goods in the night market are either counterfeit or stolen. So it's kind of shady, but it's a fun experience. So what they'll do is when you ask them for something, like if you're interested in something, hey phone, my bad guys, cell phone went off. Anywho, I'm gonna shut this bad boy off right now. But if you go to the night markets and you're interested in something, you'll ask them, how much do you want for this? They'll give you some number, and usually it's generally about 3 or 4 times more than what they actually either paid for it or what it's actually worth. So the trick is you have to know how to underbid them, because you don't want to bid so high that you obviously gyp yourself out of a good deal, but you don't want to bid so low either that you absolutely insult them. Because there's a certain threshold of an acceptable bid and one that's just a punch in the face kind of thing where you're like why would you be a total douche like that and bid nothing on this? Like, oh, you want 300 for this? I'll give you $10. And you're like, no, because then they'll be turned off completely and they won't even think of giving you a good deal. So you have to underbid them, but you have to do it in such a way that they actually know that you're bargaining with them and you're not trying to completely cheat them out of it. So the trick is trying to find that first initial bid, because that will really determine what price you're going to get. There's all certain tactics you can use, usually a good one is the walk away trick, because primarily their objective here is not really to get the most money they can. Their objective is to actually sell the item, because honestly, even if they get half of what they ask for it, they're still making money on it. So what you want to do is, if you're really interested in an item, then you might be willing to bid a little more in it, but you can't get psychologically attached to the item that you're trying to get, because what you'll do is you'll find yourself overbidding and staying attached to it. The best thing you can honestly do is bid a couple times, and then if you don't get it the first 2 or 3 bids, if you guys can't settle on anything or they're not coming down enough, just walk away. Because I guarantee you, 99 times out of 100, they will literally chase you down and say, okay, I'll go down a little bit more. And sometimes you may have to walk away more than once or twice. Sometimes you'll have to walk away as much as 3 times before they actually get to settle on a decent price. But if you're willing to haggle with them, they will cut you a deal. They'll lower their price quite a bit. So that's kind of the experience of the night market. And I'm going to go back and get a couple more souvenirs for people, because halfway around the world, you got to bring something back, right? So I'm going to go shopping a little bit more. I'll see what I can get. And I generally find that my bidding skills, or whatever you want to call them, has gotten much better since I've gone back and forth a few times. The first time I went, I just had no clue how the thing worked. So I pretty much paid them exactly what they asked, which is terrible. That's how they take advantage of foreigners, because they'll usually quote you a price that's way too high, but they'll think, oh, it's such a good price anyway when you convert it back to your national currency. So you don't even think about bidding under it. But the trick is they want you to bid. It's actually customary in Hong Kong to do so. It's part of the experience. So it's just something you got to keep in mind. If any of you do happen to go to Hong Kong, or China for that matter, any part of the night markets, just keep that in mind. Maximilian's got all these tips and tricks for you. Send me a message too if you do plan to go on Asia. I'll send you a couple more things, especially if it pertains to Hong Kong or mainland China. I've learned quite a bit when I've been over here, and how their practices differ from ours in the West. There's a lot of cultural differences, and not to mention a lot of practical differences too. Things you have to get used to, like public transit is really big here in China and Hong Kong, because not too many people own cars, especially in Hong Kong, since it's such a densely populated city and parking is at a premium. Not to mention the import tax on cars is absurd. But if you can get used to the public transit system, you can get anywhere you want. The trick is just understanding how it works and getting a feel for where all the stations are, things like that. Maybe I'll post a little commentary on getting used to public transit system here or whatever in the future. Anywho, this has been another episode of Pokemon. Stay tuned for another one coming up in the next few days. I'll see you guys later.